What is happening between Iran and the US? Because it seems like they're restarting the war, but they're negotiating. There's a ceasefire, but there's a war. Yesterday they attacked each other, and we're going to go into that. But before we do, we need to start from the beginning of the week. Under Operation Freedom, as announced by Mr. Trump, he was going to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz using the US Navy. And within 48 hours of starting this mission, which they call a defensive humanitarian mission, they've backtracked and said, actually, we're not going to do this. And the reason was because Iranians said no, essentially. And, the ships that tried to bypass or go through the Strait of Hormuz, not through the dedicated route that the Iranians indicated, were shot at because that's not allowed according to the Iranians. And even the U.S. Navy was, some missiles were directed at the U.S. Navy, even though at the beginning, Monday, Tuesday, 4th, 5th of May, no U.S. Navy ship was damaged, but it was confirmed that some missiles were actually directed towards the Navy. And during that maneuver of 48 hours, the failed Operation Freedom, Fujairah in the UAE was also attacked, an oil refinery facility that was attacked. Iran said it wasn't us, but who's it going to be if it's not the Iranians? It might be a false flag. We don't know. But it seems like it's most likely the Iranians. But it's interesting that they said it's not us. It could be not them. And on Wednesday/Thursday, we heard that there was an imminent deal going to happen between Iran and the U.S. And of course, that didn't materialize. This imminent deal that we always hear about every week. There's been 50 imminent deals, peace negotiated deals about to happen. And on Thursday night, the U.S. decided again to attempt to go into the Strait of Hormuz. The reason why they're doing this is to kind of give confidence to the stranded vessels to kind of go through the Strait of Hormuz and to say to the world, look, the Iranians are not shooting at us, and therefore it's safe passage to go not through the directed route that the Iranians have said, but through, near the shores of Oman. But what the Americans did the opposite of that, because as the U.S. Navy was kind of trying to attempt to go through the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians started shooting at them. Now, we don't know the damage that was done to the U.S. Navy. The U.S. CENTCOM came and said that there was no damage. The Iranians said, well, show us your ships because we believe that there was some damage. And in retaliation for that, the U.S. started attacking Bandar Abbas and some other cities across the coastal line of the Strait of Hormuz, where apparently the drones and missiles were launched from at the U.S. Navy. Now, Iran says not only did the U.S. Navy attempt to go through the Strait of Hormuz, but the U.S. attacked one of the oil tankers, the Iranian oil tankers, and therefore Iran had to respond to that. So it seems like the U.S. is still attempting to kind of force their way through the Strait of Hormuz and open it by force to showcase to the world, to all the ship owners that, hey, you could pass through the Strait of Hormuz without any issues from the Iranians. But they did the opposite of that. They basically told everyone it's really dangerous because us, the U.S. Navy, we're being shot at by the Iranians. Imagine an oil tanker that doesn't have any, missiles or any defense capability. It's definitely going to be shot at if it doesn't go through the corridor dedicated by the Iranian government. So where are we? Are we close to a deal? Because every week we're told we're very close to a deal when it's very obvious that we're very far away from a deal. The reason why there's keep on saying that they're very close to a deal is just to calm the markets. Right? We don't want the oil price to be very high. We want to show people that, hey, oil is, not going above $100 per barrel. However, there's a difference between what the financial markets are saying the price of oil is, which is based on speculation, versus what you actually pay. Because what you actually pay, especially in the US, in terms of oil for, fueling your car, is up 60%. From before the war started. It's about 4.5, 4.6 average dollars per gallon. So people don't care about the financial market, the oil price in the financial markets. They care about the actual price of oil that they use, which is going up. But the stock market cares about whether there is a deal, close to a deal or not. And that's why this stock market is at record-breaking highs, because they really believe what Trump is saying, that there is an imminent deal on the table. When you start looking into the proposals by the US and by Iran regarding this imminent negotiated deal that's going to happen at any moment, you see the big differences between the two parties, which tells you we are not close to a deal at all. This is what the US proposal is. The US new memorandum peace proposal to Iran to end the war has been leaked. Number one, Iran will transfer all of its enriched uranium out. Iran has said they're not going to do this. Iran declares it will not pursue a nuclear weapon. It has declared that 1,000 times. 20 years halt to proliferation. So that's enriching uranium. Iran said that's not on the table anymore. We gave that before the war, zero enrichment, but we're not going to give this now, especially now that we have the Strait of Hormuz and you killed our leadership. Full dismantling of Fordow, Nantes, and Isfahan, which is the nuclear facilities. The Iranians said, we're not going to do this. It took us years to build. It's part of our assets, and it cost a lot of money, obviously, to build. Snap inspections with penalties. So basically, at any moment, there'll be inspections. Well, the Iranians provided that as part of the JCPOA with the Obama deal. And what did they get for that? A war, twice, while they were negotiating with the US. Ban on underground nuclear activity. Yeah, probably they can give that. And the gradual easing of US blockade and Iranian restrictions on Hormuz. If all above are kept, also sanctions relief and further 30-day period of talks on technicalities. The reason why Iran would never accept this proposal is because this is exactly the same proposal as before the war. Before the war, the Iranian leaderships were alive. Iran didn't have control over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, they've killed a lot of their leadership. They've killed a lot of their civilians. And Iran has control over the Strait of Hormuz, i.e. it has more leverage. So obviously they're not going to accept the proposal that was given by the US before the war. It's the US that needs to make concessions now. But the problem is Trump cannot accept anything worse than the Obama deal, the JCPOA. And so he's stuck. He keeps on repeating the same, proposal over and over again, thinking that, the more you repeat it, the more it's going to be reality. That's not how it works in the real world. And so what Trump is trying to do is trying to attempt to remove that Strait of Hormuz leverage from the Iranians by doing this kind of Operation Freedom to, bypass the blockade, the Iranian control through their U.S. Navy. But it's not working because Iran is retaliating against any movements that's not coordinated with the Iranians. And it's clear that Trump is now worried about restarting the war, because he knows the capability of Iran. Before the war, you could argue that Trump didn't really understand, fully grasp the capability of Iran, and most of us did not. But now he gets it. And also, he has a meeting with Xi Jinping from China next week. So he doesn't really want to start a war a week before going to China. He's already postponed that once. I mean, it's a bit of a push to postpone it again. One of the concessions that the Iranians gave during the negotiation in Islamabad was that they won't enrich any extra uranium unless they need it. So the idea was that one of their nuclear facilities already has enriched uranium where it could operate without enriching more uranium. And they're building a new one whereby it's going to be completed, I think, in 12 years. And so in 12 years, they'll need to enrich uranium for that new nuclear facility. And so the idea was that we could say that we're not going to enrich anymore until 12 years because we already have what we need right now. And for the new one, it's going to be in 12 years. And Trump can take this and spin it as they've halted enrichment for 12 years. That was the concession. But Trump is very adamant on the 20 years because it's longer than the 15 years agreed by the JCPOA. The problem is that the US believes that Iran is trying to build a nuclear bomb. And they keep on bringing this up as if it's a fact, when it's very clear it's not a fact. The American intelligence, nearly all the intelligence have agreed that Iran is not building and does not want to build a nuclear weapon. But anytime Trump has a conversation with any leader, he keeps on bringing up this, we both agree that Iran can never have a nuclear bomb. He speaks to the French president. He speaks to the UK prime minister. He speaks to the Pope. We all agree that Iran can never have a nuclear bomb. He speaks to Santa, he speaks to the elves, and he keeps on saying, yeah, we all agree that Iran cannot have a nuclear, and he just keeps on repeating that. When it's already agreed, this is already agreed before Trump even became president. Why did Iran enter into the JCPOA deal with Obama? The problem that the US has right now is the Strait of Hormuz, which was so obvious that the Iranians were going to take control over that if the war starts. The thing is, the Strait of Hormuz is not in international waters. It's in Omani waters and in Iranian waters. I don't know why they keep on also lying about it's an international water. It's not in international waters. Doesn't mean Iran has the right to control the Strait of Hormuz. It just, there are facts and there are lies. The lie is Strait of Hormuz is in international waters. It's not. Now, the Iranians have set new rules around how do you pass through the Strait of Hormuz under the Iranian control. And it's very interesting. So number one, if you want to pass the Strait of Hormuz, you have to pay a toll fee to the Hormuz Authority, which was established by the Iranians. And you have to pay that in Iranian rials. The idea is that that's going to ease the pressure on the rial losing so much value as that it has lost for the past couple months. But I think there will be, they'll accept Chinese yuan or some type of cryptocurrency also. You also have to get a bank guarantee from an Iranian bank. I think the idea is that you actually have to put an amount of money with an Iranian bank. In a way, it's like collateral to ensure that you have continuous flow through in and out. The next rule is interesting. If a country has caused damage in Iran through this war, they first have to pay the damages to Iran. I don't know how they're going to calculate the damages. I don't know whether it's going to be a upfront payment for all the damages or throughout the years. It's going to be a percentage paid every year. Not clear. But that means, for example, America, some European countries that participated, maybe some Gulf countries will have to make extra payments for those damages made. And the Iranians are very kind of focused on this whole damage thing, especially with the US. They're saying basically, you're going to have to make some kind of payment for the damage that you've made. And in a way, they're using this as a deterrence from future attacks, in that this is going to cost you something for what you did with this war. I'm not sure if any country is going to accept that, but we're going to see how this unravels. This is the problem that the Americans have, is that the Americans want to go back to things of how they were before the war started. But things have changed now. Iran has an extra asset that needs to be dealt with, the extra leverage, the Strait of Hormuz. And so the US has to make some kind of concession to what they were proposing now compared to before the war. Because Iran's never going to accept anything close to what they were proposing before the war started and all the damage that was caused. And this is how ridiculous this war is because before, Iran was isolated, under sanctions, slowly, being crippled by those US sanctions. No one wanted to deal with Iran. And now everyone has to deal with Iran to allow their ships passage through the Strait of Hormuz. It's elevated Iran, this war is. This is how crazy this war is. Even though Trump is saying that we've won and it's an amazing success story, they're just lying. It's a flat out lie. Because now countries have to have conversations with Iran, has to have improved diplomatic relationships with Iran to ensure that they have safe passage, not only of just normal ships, but the oil, the energy that so many countries are dependent on. They didn't have to have any conversation before with Iran in respect to receiving energy from the Gulf countries. Now, they have to have those conversations. They have to enter into those agreements. And those countries that have applied sanctions on Iran, they're going to have to change that position. So Iran's gone from an isolated country, elevated to a regional power with control over the passage of 20% of all oil globally. Because that 20% is what passes through the Strait of Hormuz. And not just oil, of LNG also. And other things like fertilizers and byproducts of oil. Another reason why Trump is very hesitant about restarting the war, even though I believe that is what's going to happen, is because of the damage that Iran has done to the US bases and assets. The Washington Post released an analysis of this. Iran has hit far more US military assets than reported satellite images show. Iranian airstrikes have damaged or destroyed at least 228 structures or pieces of equipment at U.S. military sites across the Middle East since the war began, hitting hangars, barracks, fuel depots, aircraft, and key radar communications and air defense equipment, according to a Washington Post analysis of satellite imagery. The amount of destruction is far larger than what has been publicly acknowledged by the U.S. government or previously reported. The threat of air attacks rendered some of the U.S. bases in the region too dangerous to staff at normal levels, and commanders moved most of the personnel from these sites out of the range of Iranian fire at the start of the war, officials have said. And these are the damaged U.S. military bases. There's in Iraq, in the north of Iraq, in Jordan over here, in Kuwait, a lot of attacks, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE. This is billions and billions of dollars in just a few weeks. And this is interesting. Two of the largest commercial providers, Vantor and Planet, of satellite imagery, have complied with requests from the U.S. government, their biggest customer, to limit, delay, or indefinitely withhold the publication of imagery of the region while the war is ongoing. The U.S. government is literally hiding the damage that Iran has done to the U.S. bases in the region. And the damage isn't just about equipment or assets. It's the image damage of the ability of the U.S. to defend its own bases in the Middle East, let alone the countries that are holding these U.S. bases. It's a catastrophic blunder by Trump to start this war. And that's why no other U.S. president has started a war with Iran, because of the region, where Iran is located. It's very strategic. It's mountainous. You don't want to start a war with that country. But Trump was told this is going to be an easy job. It's a weekend thing by, obviously the Israelis. And they keep on saying it was an imminent threat of they were going to build a nuclear, weapon at any moment. But then they say they've obliterated their nuclear capabilities in the last Midnight Hammer attack in last June. And at the same time, they're saying the Iranians cannot access the nuclear, the enriched uranium, because they're under these facilities that were bombed. And that's why they call them these nuclear dust. They're inaccessible. But yet it was imminent. And that's why they had to go into this war. But it's not a war. It's a skirmish. It's just hard to follow, all the lies by the U.S. government, by Trump. And then you have Marco Rubio making some interesting statements here.
As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here.
What cards is he talking about? If the U.S. holds all the cards, then just open the Strait of Hormuz. But they can't, because they don't hold all the cards. I mean, if Iran was that weak and couldn't do anything, then Trump would use the thing that he loves to use so much, which is to attack and put pressure and bully until he gets what he wants. But it's not working here because the U.S. doesn't hold a lot of cards.
Think about it this way. Everybody needs to think about it this way. If Iran had a nuclear weapon and they decided to close the straits and make our gas prices like $9 a gallon or $8 a gallon, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they have a nuclear weapon. And a nuclear-armed Iran could do whatever the hell they want with the straits, and there's nothing anyone would be able to do about it. And that's one of the many reasons, apart from like the massive loss of life in a nuclear strike, why Iran can never have a nuclear weapon.
I mean, aside from the fact that every U.S. intelligence agency has said that Iran is not, doesn't want to, is not building a nuclear weapon, and that they've said 1,000 times they're not building or wanting to build a nuclear weapon. That's why they entered into an agreement with the U.S. in 2016-15 to ensure and confirm that they are not building a nuclear weapon with inspections and everything, which Trump ripped apart. And this whole argument that that's why we're doing this, because if they have a nuclear weapon, look what they can do. I mean, Russia has nuclear weapons and you're still attacking Russia. Are you saying that China can do whatever it wants and you won't do anything with respect to China because they have nuclear weapons, or any other country? I mean, Pakistan and India just had a skirmish. They both have nuclear weapons. So how are we going to get into a situation where that is removed. If you cannot get into an agreement, or Iran gets into agreement and you rip it apart, you could always use, well, they're now trying to build a nuclear weapon and therefore we have to do X, Y, Z. That could be happening at any moment. You could use that at any moment, in a year's time, in 2 years' time. Even though the intelligence agencies and everything, on the ground is saying that they're not building a nuclear weapon, if they do anything that you don't like, nothing to do with nuclear weapons, you could just come up and say, hey, look, they're building a nuclear weapon. On what basis? No basis. We just feel like they are, and therefore we have to attack them again. So where are we with this Iran-US war? Well, the US says, we want to do a regime change. That was at the beginning, but now we're not doing regime change, even though we did kind of a regime change with killing the leadership, but we're not really into the regime change kind of scenario, even though we're asking the Kurds and supplying weapons to them to do internal civil war, to do regime change, but we don't want regime change. This is a war, but actually it's not a war. It's a skirmish. Iran can't pass, put restrictions on passage on the Strait of Hormuz, but the U.S. can do a whole blockade and embargo on Venezuela or Cuba, but any other country can't do anything close to that. The U.S. is in control of the Strait of Hormuz, but actually anytime that the U.S. Navy kind of passes through, they're being shot at. We're winning this war, but hey, why isn't anyone helping us to open the Strait of Hormuz? But it's very easy because we're in control of the Strait of Hormuz, but we don't need the Strait of Hormuz, so we need everyone else to actually join in to open the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is very weak. We've demolished all their Navy and their Air Force, but somehow they're still in control of the Strait of Hormuz. We've demolished their missile capability, but somehow they're still able to launch missiles at targets. We can continue this war for as long as we need to, but we've also used 50%, more than 50% of our ammunition for a lot of our missiles in just 4 weeks. We want China to come and help us, but we're also applying tariffs on China and Europe. Actually, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is amazing for the US because oil prices are up and we are a net exporter of oil and therefore we're making a lot of money, but the people are paying 60% more for fuel than before the war started. We're going to enter into a negotiated deal imminently. They really want to make a deal, but it's been 4 weeks of me saying they really want to make a deal and there's no deal on the table that's close to being accepted by the Iranians. We're going to unsanction all the Iranian oil so that it reduces the pressure of oil prices, but then we're going to do a blockade on Iran to limit their ability to sell oil. I mean, these guys are just making things up as they go. They don't know what to do, how to resolve this mess they are in. And the more time passes, the worse it gets, because we're losing 11 million barrels a day of oil because of the restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz and this war. And so it's going to get worse and worse and worse the longer this ceasefire continues without a negotiated deal. And there doesn't seem to be anywhere close to a negotiated deal because the US is coming up with the same proposal as before the war, when now Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz and it has more leverage. We'd love to know your thoughts about how you see the situation and where you see this going. It seems like we're, to me, very far away from a negotiated deal, and it's likely that the US will escalate, although Trump is being very hesitant, and I'm glad he's being hesitant because an escalation would result in more deaths and more destruction without the ability to resolve anything, because the 4 weeks where you've used more than 50% of your ammunition didn't achieve any of the objectives that you wanted. Regime change? Nope. Obtaining the enriched uranium? Nope. Concessions on limiting enriched uranium? Nope. Destruction of Iran's missile capability? Nope. So it's not clear what has achieved, and for Trump to say this is an amazing win, one of the most spectacular wins that the US has ever done, he's comparing it to the Venezuela raid. That's how deluded he is with respect to this. If you did like this video, do hit the like and subscribe, and see you very soon.